No, that's a fantastic idea, though, is to see where, you're right. And I kind of have to laugh because I don't know why I haven't thought about that. I've never thought of it that way. I've always thought, we track kind of manually how long people stay. But to figure out which pages they're coming from, I know they come from the sign-up page because they got to get there, but how they get there, that whole trail, those tools I think they're out there available to track them all the way, but I don't track it that closely either. And maybe we're both making a mistake by not. I don't know.
And the difference between us is that you charge a lot more for your site than I do, so you deal with smaller numbers, bigger revenues, and so it's easier for you to go in manually, and it's more important for you to go in manually and figure out what's going on. And you could track it easier. For me, with dozens of people a month coming in and paying $25, dozens of new people a month coming in paying $25, it's just too much. And I also, it's just too much. It's too much. But there's another value, by the way, to doing a membership site. You suddenly have a currency. You suddenly can say to somebody who offers you some help, hey, I know you want to do this for free, but I'll give you free premium membership. Or to someone who you want to do some kind of partnership with, or you want to get some help with, or maybe if I'm launching a new feature on the site and I need the audience to come in and help, I'm not just saying come in and be paid volunteers and hoping one or two people come. I'm saying if you come in and do it, I'll give you premium access to the site. There's a value on this. You see people are screaming that they don't have access to this. I'll give it to you. And then that draws in more people to help out. And then it becomes a currency that you kind of can print up yourself and use to help grow your business. But you did ask about sponsorships too, and I'll be open about the sponsorship revenue. When I started out, I was charging, I think it was $650 for an ad in front of my interviews. I made up that number. I can tell you in a bit how I came up with that. Now what I do is I have 6 sponsors. Each one pays $650 a month. And in addition to it, I have a few one-off sponsorships throughout the site that are harder to identify and actually harder for me to name, because if I say this spot costs this much, you'll know exactly which sponsor is paying that much, and the sponsors don't want people to know that they're paying me more than they're paying other people, because then they have to explain, no, Andrew's got a different audience here, and Andrew's bringing in guests who I want to be associated with, and even if his audience doesn't sign up for my service, if the guest knows that my business exists, the guest might invest in my company and so on. So I won't go into the one-off the custom sponsorships that I have on the site, but I will say $650 or $750. Check it out.
Well, how did you come up with that number?
Okay, so here's what I did. I called up people who are sponsoring programs like mine, and I said, what are you guys paying for these programs? I hear you in there. I'm a fan of them. What are you paying? And, of course, they told me, and they don't want to keep that stuff a secret usually because they're hoping you'll underbid the people who they're buying ads from. I said, okay, that's interesting. How did it perform? And, again, they have an incentive to tell you that it's not performing, that it's performing super well so you'll compete with that, but they tend to be pretty open about that too. I said, all right, how does that back into number of orders? How does that back into whatever action that you're looking for? Some people don't necessarily need an order right away, but they do want new sign-up. I said, all right, you're paying $1,000. How many sign-ups do you need? You need 1,000 sign-ups? Okay, that comes out to $1 a sign-up. I may not be able to deliver 1,000 sign-ups, I don't think, but maybe I could deliver 500. How about we come up with $500 for a month? If I don't deliver enough, be open with me, and I'll give you a discount. If I do deliver enough or deliver more, good on you. You can keep it, but just be open with me. What I really need is someone who I can give a super low price to in exchange for customizing my stuff to him and being much more of help to him than I could to other people in the future when it becomes bigger and bigger. And I also need a case study that I can then go out to other sponsors. So what I did was I went to FreshBooks and I said, you're sponsoring programs like mine. How much do you pay per action, and what's the action that you want from these programs? So I think they said something like $7 or so for every person who signs up for FreshBooks invoices or some number like that. I said, okay, why don't I sell you the ad for $650? I remember that's how much I charge for that spot. And if I can't deliver 100 people to you, then I'll give you a discount. But if I can, be open with me, and I'll be able to use that to bring in other sponsors, and I'll set my rate at $650, which is what I did.
That's fascinating because I loved what you did with FreshBooks. You said if you want to know how much they paid for this ad, go in and create an invoice on FreshBooks and I'll tell you what they paid for it. And essentially getting people to go in and create accounts. I thought that was brilliant. Did that work well?
It worked absolutely well. We got way more than we were supposed to, and I didn't even have to run the ads for as long as we planned. And you have to, I think, customize your sponsorships. If you just run a static ad, you might as well run a banner ad, and those things pay bupkis. What you want to do is customize it, bring out your own personality in the spot that you're recording, talk specifically about your own experiences, and have a call to action that connects with the audience. Say, this is why you should do it, because this is what I know about you. And that's the way that you can stand out. And you have that power because you're doing interviews. You have that power because you're not just running random Google ads.
Now, for that one, they could probably track it, of course, because they saw people coming from you and opening accounts. But I know for your Grasshopper ads, you just say to go to grasshopper.com. How did they track the effectiveness of the ad?
I don't track anymore. I want to track early on, and then I have to say to my guys, look, you can't track, because who in their right mind, what person is saying, I see GoDaddy ads, they say, for 10% off GoDaddy, mention my name, or maybe it's like 5%. When I'm at GoDaddy, can I really remember who it was who told me about them first? Can I then remember what stupid code they gave me? It's usually something like revision 3 X52 or something. I can't remember it. So you know what I do? I know about GoDaddy. I know that they have an offer. I do a search for discount GoDaddy on Google. I come up with a good discount code, and that's who gets the credit. And that's just not a sane way to track orders. The other thing is, if all you're coming to me for is tracking orders, then you're not getting what I do best. I'm not here to send you orders that you can track. I'm here to do that, and I'm also here to build up your reputation. I'm also here to be the first person people think about when they're asking themselves, who should I use for a virtual phone system? If you're asking yourself that, by now you'll know it's Grasshopper. If you're asking yourself, okay, I need to set up the store, who do I set it up with? I've now pounded into your head over and over, it's Shopify. Now, do I have to pound in Shopify and also pound in some random code? Of course not. Of course not. You would never see that in television commercial. You never see Tide will say, Tide is terrific. Now go in there and say Young and the Restless X57 when you're at the grocery store, because now they have to brand two things, X57, and they have to brand in Tide. So screw that. And you know what? And if you're open with sponsors and say, that's why I'm doing this, it's going to be fine. They will understand it, and they will hold firm. What I do, though, is I say to my audience, tell them, say hello, go and reach out to them somehow. You should approach these guys, and that's enough.
It seems that the podcasts, online video, we're all, for some reason, held to this higher standard than TV or radio or anybody else. What do you say to a sponsor when they say, look, I got to be able to show a return on this, Andrew? Well, you just answered that question, but I guess I'm just commenting on the frustration of being held to a higher standard than other advertising mediums.
It's a good point. I actually have another phone call scheduled in a couple of minutes. But
I was going to ask you about that. So I'm sorry.
So here's what I say. First of all, you got to man up or woman up. You can't be a wuss. You can't say, and I know you're putting yourself out there. Believe me, I'm putting myself out here now as I say, don't be a wuss. I'm thinking to myself, someone who's listening to me now going to think that I will be a wuss at some point. And are they going to judge me and say, look at him, he thought he was so tough, but now I'm listening to him and he's a big wuss. So I know you're putting yourself out there when you're doing a podcast. You're putting yourself out there when you're doing interviews. You're putting yourself out there when you're interviewing people who are better than you at something, and you're asking them to teach you. And in addition to that, I'm going to say also put yourself out there when you're with a sponsor. And I know it's extra painful to do that, but you have to. And you have to do that by saying, look, this is what I'm charging, and it's worth it because I do have a little bit of a track record here. And in addition to it, you will get this and that. Here's the other. So that's the inner work that you need to do. The other work that I think you need to do is you need to just understand that there's certain price points that companies don't care about. I heard Joel Spolsky say this. He said, look, to a company, if you're charging them $600 or $1,000, it doesn't blow their mind. It's not something that they register that much. They're saying to themselves, I'm working with this guy. Anything over $1,000 I have authority to do. We do a few things that are under $1,000 that are risks, like do a company picnic or go out for drinks. And if you fall within those little ranges, you're fine. And so when it was time for me to raise my price to, I think I do charge $750. The reason I don't know it is the ads sell themselves at this point. People who I interview will ask to sponsor my program. People who've seen their friends sponsor will ask to sponsor. Eventually, the stuff kind of rolls, and you don't have to do much work for it. But when it was time for me to double my prices, I said, I'm going to go back to my sponsors and say, I'm charging you twice. Now I'm suddenly going to be in a whole other range, and I'm going to blow their mind by charging them twice. I said, no, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to reduce my price, but I'm going to a little bit, but I'm also going to reduce the number of ads that you get a lot. And so instead of doing when I was doing $650, instead of saying suddenly it's going to be $1,200 a month, I said no, it's going to still be $650 a month, but now you're going to get half of the sponsorships for the month. And so that was a much easier sell to have. So that helped a lot. The other thing is that you help your sponsors beyond it by introducing them to the guests, by introducing them to other people in the industry. When you do interviews, you're going to be surrounded by people who are great. And if you're not, go out there and get better interviewees. And that gives you ability to be a connector and help people in a way that goes beyond just reading a spot and beyond just throwing a banner or Google ad.
All right, listeners, I got to let Andrew go. I told him this would be 20 minutes. We've gone an hour. I could ask another 2 hours of questions. Go to Mixergy.com. I think he's got a terrific model of sponsorship, membership. The whole thing is just really done well. If you want to get a good idea of what it takes to be successful, go to Mixergy.com. Subscribe to the interviews. Watch how he does them, but the content is great too. Andrew, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate you giving us some of this insight. It's been some great tips, and thanks for your time.
No, thanks for having me on. I listened to your I was listening to your programs in Argentina on my way to the subte, to the subway. That's when I said to myself, I need more than 20 minutes of Tim Berkwin. So I'm glad and so proud to be on here.
Excellent. Thanks again.